In this new series that I call Nerding Out, we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Sony 35mm f1.4 G Master lens. This thing is an absolute monster of a lens. It's one that everyone has been waiting for, and I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about this lens in this video. Welcome to the first episode of Nerding Out with Miguel Quiles. If it's your first time here, welcome everyone. I put out photography tutorials, product reviews, things of that nature here on my channel as much as possible, trying to get to do it once a week, but things have been crazy. You know, we're in 2021, but I feel like it's almost an extension of 2020. So anyway, if you're into learning more about new products, sharpening your photography, improving your photography, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel because I have new videos coming out all the time. Without further ado, let's talk about this new 35mm f1.4 G Master lens. And I think one of the first things that really kind of struck me when I used this lens was how similar in form factor and size it was to one of my favorite lenses that I use all the time. I'm actually using it to film myself on the A7S III. That's the 24mm G Master lens. For the longest time since it was released, that was my everyday carry, my everyday walk around lens for a number of reasons. Number one, the autofocus performance was fantastic. It's a small and compact lens, which I don't want to have to carry heavy lenses when I'm walking around and I'm not sure what I'm going to be shooting. That 24mm G Master was really one of my favorites, and I think a part of me was kind of hoping and anticipating a 35-1.4 because that is another favorite focal length of mine. A lot of my content here on YouTube over the years was actually filmed using the 35-1.4, the Sony Zeiss lens. So really excited to have a lens like this that is smaller, more compact, but still has some special features. Before we get into the special features that this lens has, let's kind of just take a quick look around this lens. So first things first, you're gonna see that they do have an aperture ring on this 35mm f1.4 G Master lens. So you could actually use your camera to adjust your aperture if you leave it in the A position, or if you want, you could just twist the aperture ring and you can adjust your aperture from there. Now, one thing that I did notice with the 35 G Master compared to some of the other lenses that have this aperture ring is that it's a little bit harder to actually go from the A, or the position where the camera controls the aperture, to actually, there we go, manually adjusting the aperture. So this is great because this is going to help people to avoid accidentally changing that aperture ring. This has happened in the past to me where I was shooting and I'm not paying attention, I bump it, and next thing you know, I'm at like, f8 and I meant to be at f3.2 or whatever. So that's something that is very welcome. Looking on the barrel of the lens here, you're gonna notice that you could actually declick the lens. And what that's gonna do, if you have it in on, then what's gonna happen is that as you adjust your aperture settings, you actually can feel, I don't know if you could hear this, so when you set it on, you could actually hear and feel when the lens is actually switching from one aperture setting to the other. And then if I turn that feature off, let's see if you could hear this. So you don't get that clicky type of sound, so you can, turn that on, turn that off. Having it off really is something that you're gonna wanna do if you're shooting video, because you really don't want to hear that clicking sound as the aperture opens or closes. So that's gonna be something that comes in handy when you're shooting video. Looking at the opposite side, or the other side of the 35 G Master lens, you're gonna notice that it has the focus hold button. This button can be programmed within your Sony camera, and it can be customized to really do a variety of different things. You could use it if you're old school and you like to have a back button autofocus. You could actually just set this to be your autofocus button, and then that way as you're shooting, you can just hold that button down and it will help you to engage the autofocus. But realistically, you could do anything. You can go into the menu, you could set it to a variety of different things, which is super handy. And then just below that, you're gonna notice you have your AF and MF switch. So if you wanna switch it from autofocus to manual focus, you've got the switch there to be able to do that. Let's continue our tour looking at the front element of the 35 G Master lens. And if you look at the front element here, what you may not notice is that this has a fluorine coating on the front of the lens. And this is a special type of coating that has been used in more modern lenses. So what that does for you is it helps you to avoid fingerprints, it resists dirt, water, and oil. And it's something that is crucial because if you're using a 35mm lens, chances are you're gonna be out and about doing street photography, astrophotography. 35mm is very popular for wedding photographers and portrait shooters as well. So these lenses get a lot of action out and about in the real world. So you might have water, splashed on the glass, or dirt or things of that nature. And that fluorine coating is very resistant to those things. If you go online, you could actually check out the Sony channel, which I'll link in the description of this video. You can actually see how that fluorine coating helps to protect that front lens element on the 35 G Master. Another thing that's on the inside of the lens elements that are in this 35 G Master is the Nano AR2 coating. Now, that Nano AR coating is something that a few other G Master lenses have, but this newly formulated Nano AR2 coating, it's one that's been developed to help minimize ghosting and flaring. And it's something that is a very common issue with these wide angle, very fast prime lenses. And it was something that the folks who created the G Master lens were very careful to make sure that they suppress that. And the way to do that is using this special Nano AR2 coating, which is something that you're gonna find in this G Master lens. And in my own experience, I took some photos at a park, took some pictures of some flowers, just random things to try to test this lens out with really strong backlit conditions. I was shocked to see that, number one, chromatic aberration was basically not even existent, which was pretty awesome. Ghosting and flaring was something that I also was not seeing in the photos that I took, which is very exciting to see in a 35mm lens that is this fast and this compact. Another really awesome thing that's on the inside that you're not gonna see is that you get these two XD or extreme dynamic linear motors. And for those of you who don't know, for the longest time, lenses actually have this rotational mechanism that moves the lens elements on the inside of the lens. So if you're using an SLR lens or DSLR lens or lenses that were made for DSLR, the way that they would push the glass elements on the inside of the barrel of the lens was actually through this rotational push. And so that was fine for the longest time because really, these older cameras weren't super smart. They weren't super performance oriented. And now when you're looking at cameras like, let's say the A7R4, or in the most extreme case, the A9 II, you have these cameras that have these processors that have to have algorithms that run it to be able to keep things in focus and to track things as they're moving either closer or farther away from the lens. And so the camera is doing all these calculations, trying to figure out where is this object now, where is it potentially going to be. And so from the camera perspective, it's doing all this number crunching and it's doing all this amazing stuff. The problem is, if you have a lens that has one of these older style of motors, it can only respond so quickly, right? So the camera could be saying, okay, I know where this object is going to go, and it will tell the lens, hey, I need you to be here. But unfortunately, if the lens is not able to push these bigger elements or even elements in general, move them into the position that they need to be, what will happen is that you're gonna have some frames, if you're shooting, let's say, 5, 6 frames a second, 10 frames a second, 20 frames a second, you're gonna notice that one shot might be in focus, then you might have a sequence of maybe 2 or 3 shots that are out of focus, and then it gets back in focus. The challenge is that, and the reason why that's happening is because the camera knows where the lens needs to be, but the lens is not able to get into position fast enough to keep those things into focus. So where does that leave us with the 35G Master? Well, we have these dual XD linear motors, which are fantastic. I'm gonna try to put up a video here on the screen for you to watch so you can see how these linear motors work, but you could see that very quickly, these dual motors are able to actually push and pull these lens elements to be in the proper position that they need to be to track moving subjects. So now you have camera bodies like the A7R4, the A9 II, which have these faster processors and are able to kind of judge a scene and look at a moving object and keep those things in focus. But now you actually have a lens which has the ability to keep up with the demands that the camera has so that it keeps things in focus. And you're gonna notice that if you shoot sports, wildlife, street scenes, whatever the case might be, anything where you have a moving object, you're gonna be able to keep those things in focus with the 35G Master. With all that being said, this 35 f1.4 G Master lens is gonna be going on sale sometime in February of 2021. Pricing is gonna be just under $1,400 here in the US, which if you look at other 35mm f1.4 lenses, it is priced very competitively, especially given the fact that you're getting a very small and compact lens for that price. So I'm gonna be doing a multitude of different photo shoots over the course of the next few weeks. So if you have any questions about this lens, do me a favor, leave it in the comment section below. I will try my best to address it either in the comments if I can, or if not, I will address them in these upcoming videos. And while you're there, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel because again, I have new videos coming out all the time. Now, if you wanna learn more about photography, please check out one of the videos that you see here on the screen. I think that you'll find these topics very interesting, and I'll see you there.